My next guest firmly believes the foundation of every successful marketing strategy is a strong, succinct, and specific message. Known for her hands on management and strategic oversight of varied and integrated marketing programs, please welcome Lizzi Goldmeier, BriefCam's Director of Marketing, to the show. Lizzi, are you ready to get radically transparent with me?
I'm so excited.
We're excited to have you here. And I know we've got a lot to cover today. And so I want to cut right to the chase, right? Because our show is known for being transparent. And I think the best way to kick off, right, is to just ask you, Lizzi, what's keeping you up at night professionally these days?
Well, first of all, Jen, thanks so much for having me. Like I said, I'm really excited to be here. Um, and truthfully, if you know you're asking me what keeps me up all night, I have to say what's more significant and exciting, in my opinion, is what doesn't keep me up at night, and really why I sleep so soundly. And that's because I have the extreme fortune of being surrounded by the most talented and creative, capable team. Um, as a manager within a marketing organization, um, one of the things that stands out to me the most about how to be impactful as a marketer and as a marketing team is the immense power of having an incredible cohort of colleagues,
Yeah.
selecting people who are independent, uh, domain experts, excited to do what they do every day. And I feel so lucky that the people that I work with, both managing directly, reporting to working across the organization, are such talents, such visionaries. And I think this is really, in my experience, I've always been so empowered when my leaders
Yeah.
have kind of given me that allowance to be independent, to challenge their assumptions. There's nothing I like better than waking up to an email saying, I know we talked about this yesterday. I know we agreed that this is the way we were going to do it, but we're wrong. This is the way we're going to do it because of X, Y, and Z. And just waking up and knowing I slept soundly, but I can trust what they're writing this morning. I trusted what they wrote yesterday.
Yeah.
That's worth its weight. Um, so
Absolutely.
yeah.
Listen, to be fully transparent, I think that when you have a strong and great team of marketing professionals under you and above you and around you that are able to
Mhm.
help guide the vision, right? We hear a lot about, the big rocks and the pebbles and the jar of like marketing priorities, right? And when you can trust the team that you're with, I feel like that is such an opportunity to be able to do more. Whether you're a startup, scale up, been around the block for many years, that is key. So I know you mentioned, your fabulous team. So can you maybe share with us? I know you're over at BriefCam. What's the value? What is BriefCam? What do you guys do?
Sure. Just before I do that, if it's okay with you, I will just say to add to that point that marketing team doesn't always mean that the people who have marketing in their title or who are officially on the marketing team. We at BriefCam always talk about our honorary marketers, so
Yeah.
people from sales and product and really any department of the company that value what we do, understand what we do, and stand up to help. I think that makes all the difference. And I so appreciate having those people on my team. But um, so what is BriefCam?
Yeah.
BriefCam
We're going to get
is
back into that. For anyone listening in, right? We're going to get back into that thought in just a
okay.
moment. But I want to set the stage because what you guys are doing is it's pretty neat.
I think so too. I mean, I've been a BriefCam for 7 years and I'm so passionate about what we do. So I'll tell you what we do. What we do is we're a video analytics platform for video surveillance users. So what that means is that we allow businesses, uh, companies, cities who use video surveillance to make that surveillance video searchable, actionable, and quantifiable. They can put in search criteria and filter video to find exactly what they need. That helps with investigations. They can use that same filtering criteria to set up real-time alerting, which helps them be more proactive and responsive, especially in emergency situations, but not necessarily in emergency situations. But for us as marketers, the part that I think is just the most exciting is that we take that video metadata that is indexed as part of our technology. And we visualize it as dashboards and heat maps and reporting. And why that's significant is that what this does effectively is take any physical space and allow you to analyze it like the same way you would analyze a digital property. So you can understand unique visitors and total visitors, who's bouncing, or not who's bouncing, but how many people are bouncing, whether there's return visits. These are things that are natural to marketing and analysts for digital spaces, but I think it's really exciting that we can bring this clarity and insight to the physical space and help all sorts of organizations make better decisions operationally, customer engagement wise. So it's very exciting.
Yeah.
Um,
Listen, we have a saying
yeah.
here at Octopus, right? You can't improve what you can't measure. And when I look at your technology, I feel it's just it's exactly that, right? You're suddenly putting things that you can measure from video, tangible things to help you guide, whether you're marketing, wherever you sit, law enforcement, right, in the right direction. So with that being said, I'm going to shift a moment to marketing leadership. And I know that when you and I caught up, we talked a bit about how social media plays an important part in sales. But I want to ask you, how are you connecting the dots? Or how can we, as marketing leaders, connect the dots between social, right? And to kind of broaden that, let's say social engagement, right? And sales, which is I think what we're really trying to say is social engagement and revenue generation. So, how can we connect those dots?
So first off, I'll just kind of give the framework of where I'm coming from, because I think this could be a totally different conversation when you're talking about individual users or B2C. Social selling obviously has a different different definition and different storyline. When you're talking about the kind of business that I work in and similar to Octopus, in the B2B space, targeting enterprise businesses or even, let's say, law enforcement audiences that are typically not buying over social media, I think there are a lot of things that you can do to set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
I think measurement is a key piece of that puzzle, but I think I come at it from a unique angle, right? So for me, I think core elements of that marketing strategy and business strategy are in the content. Like I said, that's where my passion is, and that's my true belief. Content is the core of every kind of marketing you'll do. And for that reason, I think employee advocacy, personal branding, and thought leadership are the tenets to connecting those dots, even though that feels like a weird answer, because those are typically difficult things to measure or somewhat intangible. But I think what we see and what we talk about within the social media space is that people are coming to the social sphere to interact with people. They're not looking to talk to brands. They're not looking to be sold to most of the time, or even just sold at,
Yeah.
so to speak. And I think companies can set themselves apart by putting their best faces forward. And those are their thought leaders, the genuine people who stand behind the brand and who make the brand look good in an authentic way. And the goal here is to, it's not the short game, right? In sales, sometimes we're like, how do we close this quick? But I think the value of these strategies is that they contribute to that long-term relationship building
Yes.
that is the tenet of the customer experience with these major technology investments, and for some of these sectors. And so I think the investment in employee advocacy, in thought leadership, in some of these softer content competencies and organic channels is super important. The challenge comes in with how do you measure it? And I thought about that too in preparation for this meeting, like that is super, super stressful. And again, that comes down to having the right people on your team to answer that question. But it also comes down to having the right technology stack in place to support those objectives. And I think one of the things that I've learned in my journey to making our content strategy measurable is that the biggest thing that you should be looking for in a tool that does this for you, that helps you measure advocacy and thought leadership, is one that can integrate directly into
Yeah.
your existing tech stack. So you can see it in your marketing automation, you can see it in your CRM, and you're not developing different reporting or looking at different tools for reporting. Everything needs to be visible in one pane of glass and transparent across the entire company.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. I think what's interesting, for so long, I feel social in general was a siloed entity. Like us marketers, especially in B2B, we know that social is like the anchor to many of the things that we do. We create the content, we need a way to distribute it. Social's great for that, right? But it always seemed to like live in a silo, the impact of it. And I think by connecting it into your MarTech stack and making sure that data is everywhere it needs to go so that you can make those smart decisions to understand the journey, right? You talked earlier, which I thought was interesting, about, you know, you're working with a team of marketers, and then you called out how you're not just talking about your actual title marketing team with the title marketing in it. You're talking about all of the honorees that are marketers, and then translate that into, the social selling or employee advocacy piece, where you're creating this thought leadership content, providing it to your honorary marketeers, if you will, right? They're sharing it, they're positioning themselves as thought leaders, they're positioning themselves to the people they need to position themselves to as credible, as trustworthy. And that's a huge, I think, challenge as a sales professional, because you have to do that rather quickly. And let's face it, I feel like cold calling, I mean, maybe someone listening, VP sales, CROs, cold calling has died many, many years ago. I'm not saying that it doesn't work and it's not effective, but it's a sheer numbers game. But I think why it's not as effective as, let's say, an employee advocacy program or when you're engaged in social selling, is cold calling is exactly that. It's cold. There's no relationship being built in a cold call, where then enter social media for BDRs, SDRs, sales teams, right? And you're suddenly creating this environment to make and create and foster meaningful relationships. Now, I think the challenge, right, and keep me honest, the sales team, they need to see results like now, tomorrow, and we all love instant gratification. But social's kind of the long game, exactly as you said, right? You said it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You're in it for the long haul. So I think that's definitely something to take into consideration when we talk thought leadership. And I know, right, you mentioned, so you serve a few different industries. And one of them, and I thought was the most interesting, was law enforcement. So I'm curious to know, in your opinion, why do you think thought leadership content works so well specifically in the law enforcement arena?
Okay, well, interesting question. Well, first of all, I'll say that I am going to challenge that assumption, because I don't think all thought leadership works so well in that arena, especially not on digital channels. Um, but I do think it can work, provided you hit a few important criteria. The first one is that it has to be carefully messaged, right? Like, not every message is going to resonate with this audience, and you have to really understand them to appeal to them.
Yeah.
Um, the second one is that and this is true of all marketing, right? It's the right message, the right place at the right time. Everything you're doing when talking to these audiences has to be really thought out and
Yeah.
carefully considered. And relationship building is key to that. These are professionals that are counting every dollar that comes their way. They have to be super transparent and thoughtful about how they're spending their money, and they're not going to squander it unless they feel that they feel that there's value. But even more so, they really value that relationship component. These are critical investments for them. When there's a problem or things, they need help, it's like life or death emergency. And knowing that they have touch points and relationships
Yeah.
with a brand that will help them in their moment of need, that are invested in their success, that celebrate the decisions that they're making, it makes such a difference. And again, advocacy is a huge piece in this. And it's so funny because we we had we see this all the time. One of our most successful employee advocates is our municipal law enforcement lead.
Oh, wow.
And he's so excited. He really sees the energy and the value in social engagement. He'll always send us, he's like, look how many impressions I got. I'm like, put this in your reporting. It's unusual, as you said. But he understands, because he's also a former law enforcement officer. He understands this tenant. He's a true domain expert. He's genuine. And he sees the value in building these relationships online and offline. So he'll be at events, but he'll like posts on LinkedIn. And he makes a big fuss about the people he's engaging with.
Yeah.
He really likes to evangelize for them, to the point that we had a laugh internally because we're planning a webinar for law enforcement. And we said, could you help us work with this influencer organization? We'd really like them to be the panel for this webinar event. And we had a meeting with them, and they were like, why do you want us when you could have Tim moderate your webinar? Like, he's the celebrity. And we were like, of course, yes, Tim will moderate the webinar, of course. But it's true. And the more we talk to our guests on the panel, the more we understand that in a way that we couldn't tangibly measure, how much this is having an impact and how meaningful that engagement is on and offline.
Yeah. So listen, I agree full-heartedly, right? The power of, providing thought leadership content to teams and opening that relationship. But there's something that actually keeps me up at night. And what that is this concept where we've kind of seen the evolution, I would say, of specifically LinkedIn. We know B2B LinkedIn kind of, goes hand in hand. We've seen this evolution of marketing strategies saying, okay, we understand that we need to make our employees thought leaders. What makes you a thought leader? You're an expert, right? But in today's, I feel like, digital world where you can so easily ask ChatGPT anything or Google, and, if everyone is a thought leader, do you believe that there are still true thought leaders? And how do those true thought leaders then stand out above the noise?
It's a really good question. And to your point, I feel like that question is on the same level for me as like I hear all the time, are you a thought leader? If everyone's a thought leader, is ChatGPT going to take my job? Those that in my mind are intricately connected. And I love the question. And the truth is that I kind of see thought leadership. In my mind, it's defined as anyone can be a thought leader, but not everyone is a thought leader to everyone.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think what defines you as a thought leader is that you have a true, authentic domain expertise and something to say that captures the attention of people. So that doesn't mean you have to have a following of 10 million to be a thought leader, but it does mean that what you're saying has to be thoughtful. It has to be true. It has to demonstrate that you have actual expertise, and it has to be relatable, and you have to relate to it, right? Like, I think true thought leadership isn't just spamming the universe with a LinkedIn post. Like, to me, that doesn't resonate. And maybe that's personal, but I feel like it's so radically transparent. Like, we're just trying to add to the noise. But a true thought leader is someone that cuts through the noise, that captures my attention. And when I read a comment saying, wow, I don't agree with you, or yes, I do agree with you, and this is why, they write back, because they're actually invested in the relationship and the conversation and building a discourse, as opposed to anyone else who is just trying to get their content out there and get the likes, or the impressions, so to speak.
I love that definition. I wish more people would adopt that definition. If we could create a glossary, I feel like that needs to be right on in there, because I don't think I could have said that better myself. And I think that's exactly what makes an effective thought leader. You took the next question right out of my mouth. Like you clearly defined it. I think what's interesting to think about from there, and I think like I said, I couldn't agree with you more. What's the next evolution, or what's the next level, or where do we see like this kind of thought leadership strategy for marketers going? If we
Well, if we, I don't have a crystal ball, but well, in the age of Chat GPT and generative AI, I hope that it's not going in the direction of a lot more noise. Um, like I think our digital experience is already so inundated
yeah,
with I guess just noise or thought leadership, or maybe better to say posts
yeah,
posing as thought leadership. Because again, I have a very specific personal definition. So I'd like to see a future where we're seeing more products of human ingenuity.
yeah,
Not to say that there isn't a place for generative AI in that. Um, I think generative AI is having a huge impact on marketing and even on the creation of thought leadership, but the thought leadership can't come from generative AI. It has to be generated by a human thought and a human creative enterprise, which is just different than a computer's. Um, and again, that's what stands out to me: genuine, authentic creativity, demonstrated domain expertise. That's where I hope it's going. Because I do think that that will help true thought leadership stand out in a sea of ChatGPT generated posts,
yeah.
and stories.
I'm with you.
Um,
I am loving. I feel like if we did a part 2 episode, we would be diving into like examples of like what stops the feed and just like this whole idea. I think you're spot on. So thank you so much for being so open about, right, the meaning, the true meaning of thought leadership. I want to ask now to close out the show, possibly my favorite question that I ask all of our guests. But, we talked a lot today about, authenticity and, the digital space. And we know we, as B2B marketers, we're all on LinkedIn. And, I definitely took some of your things from LinkedIn, your bio, to like make into my bio. So I've done my due diligence. What's one thing we can learn about you on this podcast that we actually can't learn about you from simply looking at your LinkedIn profile?
that is a great question. I would say, um, and maybe this is on me that it's not so apparent on my LinkedIn profile, but one of my major passions, as a marketer is mentorship. I have been so fortunate to work with incredible mentors in and outside of marketing that have really helped me form who I am today and form my strategy, my opinions. And I'm so grateful. And there's nothing that I find more fulfilling than paying it forward to others. I love when I get outreach from someone I don't know saying, "Hey, I saw your profile. Do you have time to chat?" Or how can you help me navigate this problem? And I love that maintaining those relationships too, because again, I guess relationship building is also something I'm very passionate about. But I love seeing how that gets paid forward and pays dividends over time. I feel so fortunate. I helped mentor someone who was looking to transition into a marketing career, and there was nothing more fulfilling for me than reaching out to her and saying, "Hey, you are now a subject matter expert in this, and I'm doing this. Can you help review the content I wrote and tell me if it's good?" And when you get that excruciating feedback, all red lines, it's like, wow, there is nothing better. Um, and I don't think
Amazing.
that shows on my LinkedIn profile, but
I love
maybe.
that. So if anybody wants to speak, Lizzie, to you about, BriefCam, what's keeping you up at night professionally from a marketing perspective, if they're in need of mentorship, where's the best place to reach you?
I Wow, I hate to say it, I guess on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. All good. So send Lizzie on over those messages. If you have any questions, you want to connect. Lizzie, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for getting radically transparent with me today. And I look forward to having you back again soon.
I love that. Thanks so much, Jen.